So I'm assuming that we're streaming. So hey, everybody, this is Uncivil Liberty. My name is Luke. We have Horace. Say hi, Horace.
Hello.
And we have the man stud himself, Halston. Say hi,
That's
Halston.
it. This is for you. That's for you, Lawyer.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Did you get a gun show over here? You better
That's
watch
right.
out. David Hogg will show up and try to take him away.
Yeah. I am in what fucking dildo slinging army.
Yeah, it's little Mr. Dick Arms over there.
Dick,
All right.
Dick Arms McGee.
Yep. So again, this is Uncivil Liberty. Trying to get our shit together right before the show. Apparently, I was on the wrong screen for a very long period of time and was thinking everybody else was slacking when it was actually me, and so it's kind of set things back for me a little bit. So I'm trying to get stuff set up on my end. All right, so check us out. Let's say Twitter. Check out our Facebook page on Civil Liberty Show. If you're not watching it currently live right now. Oh, what else we got? We got the YouTube, got the podcasts. Check all that out. You know, if you're bored, you got about an hour to kill. I'm sure we can meet that hour of extra time that you have. But anything new to report before we kind of move into the topic, Halston? Anything coming across your radar that you want to throw out there at the beginning of the show?
Is this a trick question?
No, it's not. This is a Luke is buying time so we can load up the actual video on his laptop.
Okay,
So he can
I'll
monitor
ta-
comments.
I'll
So,
take
Horace,
this
if you
one.
want to step in here, that's perfectly fine too.
The money is in from the fundraiser,
It is.
There we
and
go.
we are working to set up a day and time to go do the shopping. I think we have decided what we are going to do is we are going to live stream the entire thing, going store to store as we spend the entire thing.
Yes.
So this will be
Tomorrow.
live streamed to Facebook. So y'all will have the entertainment of seeing us do all this.
Yeah, and entertainment will be because we're gonna have to hit at least 2, if not 3.
I think we're probably gonna have to go 3, man. When I was in Dollar General, I mean, unless we're gonna buy shit like cooking utensils for them to beat
Yeah.
each other with.
Here's a whole bunch of
too
potato
soon.
mashers. There you go. Take that to school.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I imagine probably for younger kids at least, there are some toys maybe. Not technically educational, but still something to,
Yeah.
And some of the toys are educational, so,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I didn't realize that with GoFundMe, they don't just drop like one big amount on you.
Oh,
They drop each and every transaction. So when I thought it was rich, I was just like, holy crap, because I'm getting $9 deposited, then $12, then $11, and I'm just like, what is going on? Okay. It's because they're like, okay, this transaction, here's our removal, and this is what's left over. There you go. So
yeah.
I just got hit, and I mean I'm not complaining about it. I just didn't know what was going on. I was expecting to see GoFundMe deposits X amount of dollars. No, it's just like chugga, 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 chugga.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, we're gonna get that squared away. Again, competing schedules makes it kind of difficult. Horace is the night owl, so his daytime is my sleep time. And then Halston and I also have competing schedules as well. So it makes for a logistical challenge at times.
Mm. And if y'all let me know, I can try to, because I've done it before, I can get on a day schedule with a couple of days of advance notice, especially on the weekend.
Yeah, weekends really hitting. Now we got soccer going on. Yeah, we are one of those soccer mom families. I've got the minivan. We got the soccer obligation. It's good times. I'm telling you, it's good times. Keeps things interesting. And we've already got Christina in the house as well as Megan. So this should be a very interesting comment section. And I'm sure here in a little bit we'll have some of the regulars tag in too. But yep. So we're actually going to be talking tonight on the little sneaky ways that that government kind of works its way in, and once it's in, it ain't really coming out. I know we kind of touched on it a little bit with just the tip show, which is probably one of our better shows. And we talked about how just a little bit of government doesn't really stay a little bit of government. We're going to take it a little bit one step further back and just kind of show some of the ways that kind of government gets themselves involved in areas that they don't necessarily need to be involved, and they will never leave once
Nope.
once you allow them in there.
Small
Halston,
government never stays small.
right? Halston, you proposed the topic, so why don't you kick it off?
Well, you know what? I'll kick it off.
Well, good, because I just asked you to kick it. I think that's
Oh, I thought it was my idea. All right. So, what's the topic again?
Oh my God, you picked it.
Yeah,
It's those sneaky little trolls.
that's it. That's
How
it.
government- how
Because
gov-
you just
Send it from
you
the
kept
door.
saying you said it. I mean, I was listening, but you also said
Obvious.
like the last thing you said was small government doesn't stay small, and I was like, shit, or was that when we changed the topic? All right, here we are. Those sneaky little things. Right. So, we actually talked about this several months ago, but I would like to bring it back up because it's kind of pertinent to what I'm dealing with in my house. Industry standards
Oh,
somehow
yes.
making it into industry regulations, right? It's really important for the company who I work with, the company I work for. It's important for me to have industry standard certifications in IT, right? That's important. But there is also government standards now for federal contracts for you to have those same certifications. So if you don't get it, you don't get a job, or you don't get to keep your job, or whatever. There's some sort of mandate there, and that's just one way that they kind of sneak in. Most people, if you are, well, there's several. There's plenty of jobs where you would never even think, oh, okay, well, that's just something I got to do. I got to go pass the insurance test, or I got to go pass the securities test, or whatever. Oh, I've got to go take my boards for cosmetology. You don't really think about it being the government being able to do it. Right. Luke's raising his hand, everybody that's just listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you don't, those people may not even the people that have to do this may not understand that that's the government saying, hey, look, we don't believe that you know how to dye hair correctly. You have to come in and show that you can paint fingernails. I mean,
Yeah.
that's realistically. My grandmother was a cosmetologist for let's see, she's 70 something. She went to school when she was 16. Right. So the better part of 6 decades she's been a cosmetologist, and she almost failed the test because she had to her arthritis was acting up. She couldn't open up the fingernail polish, and almost failed the test because of that. She's never painted nails in her entire life. She's only done hair, but for whatever reason, that's just
Because cosmetology covers the
my first
gamut.
example. So we could talk about those for quite some time, but I know we've already had a show on it. But that's
Yeah, the whole professional licensing aspect and having the government dictating what you can and can't do, that's that kind of takes a choice away from the consumer. A lot of people are going to kind of say, well, the government's there to protect. Not so much, they're more there to protect the industry, not the people. They said, especially look at real estate, for example, they keep raising the intensity of the questions to try to keep people from going in, and then they lower it if they notice that there's a gap in the marketplace. So it regulates the skill-based marketplace. It's not so much about consumer protection. That's what I guess you would consider an unintended consequence of this behavior. Now that is my kid crying, so
okay.
that's my kid in the background.
He sounds like my kid.
He is cutting his 1-year molars right now, and
Oh, poor kid.
it's been a blast. Let me tell you, it has been a great 2 weeks.
Yep.
But no,
Remember that
the
6
only
months ago.
thing, the only thing the government serves, the only thing the government protects is the state.
Yeah.
That's it. If you
That's
think
true.
otherwise, well, I don't know what to tell you.
I do believe that there are certain politicians once upon a time that thought something was a good idea to protect the populace. I just don't think they had their head far enough out of their ass to understand what they were doing to the other portion of the populace. You know what I mean? I think that once upon a time there were a lot of hacks that were running around pretending to be doctors. I think that all of us would agree if your wife went to some fake gynecologist that we'd be a little pissed off about it, right? So I think at some time there was some politician that said, okay, look, let's put an end to this. But there's actually a really good show on Netflix right now called The Frankenstein Chronicles. And it kind of mentions that portion of English history when they were kind of getting rid of all the witch doctors and stuff. But instead of going after the hacks that were hurting people, that were being like fake surgeons or whatever, they were actually getting rid of like all the apothecaries and all the vitamin shops and shit in London. So they never really think about the dumb shit they do.
from this is an area where I have a little bit of knowledge, having done some research on it. A lot of what they were doing is you had so-called doctors that really couldn't do much of anything, but then you had these apothecaries, the witch doctors, as you put it, and in some cases, actual witches, the wise women of the villages and sometimes moved into the cities, who had decades, centuries of herbal lore at their fingertips, which actually could have great effects. They could actually cure people of things. This was providing competition to these educated doctors. They couldn't have that.
Right.
That has as much to do with it as anything else. Is they were providing real competition, and doing things they couldn't do. That's not allowed. So again, the government stepped in and shut it down to the harm of to the harm of the greater community.
Yeah, the apothe. I mean, why would you shut down some naturalist? I mean, I understand some of the weird things like the Catholic Church not some Catholic not treating their kid because they're possessed by the devil or whatever. I understand someone stepping in and saying, look, you guys are fucking stupid, but that's not what they were doing. They were basically concocting and what's the word? Compounding herbs and vitamins and saying, here, take this to knock out that cough or whatever. Oh, no, you can't do that unless you went to college for 12 years.
Right.
But even when they were doing this shit, it was only like you have to go to college for like 6 months or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, because the educational standard was super low back then, even for like being an attorney back in we're going back to like we're in the Wayback Machine to the 1800s time frame where it's like you spend a year in college, you're considered the most educated person in your community.
Yes.
And, so you could be a lawyer, doctors, and, a lot of it was hands-on training. It was, small amount of book learning, and then you go and you apprentice underneath somebody else. And that's usually how it worked. Nowadays, it's just nonstop school with, with some focus on hands-on training. But, I mean, I can even speak to it to a level with the industry that I'm in, being that I'm in insurance, financial services, investments, super heavily regulated. And these tests are designed to kind of wash people out. However, it does not prevent unethical behaviors. It does not prevent people getting screwed. I see it all the time, in dealing with people with life insurance and even just with homeowners and auto insurance. People are getting screwed left and right because somebody passed the test, they're in good standing with the state. They got their license. So the consumer protection aspect of it really truly isn't there. You're limiting the competition, but not on the standards that you're saying that you are to the general population.
Right. No, and just try to set up a third-party organization to monitor and oversee this, and see how fast you get shut down.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, in all fairness, I will say that, and I can really speak heavily in the area that I'm in. Like FINRA is a non-governmental body that regulates securities brokers, mutual funds, any type of equities, pretty much anything other than commodities and futures, they oversee. And so, while they have a good relationship with the SEC, they are not. FINRA is not necessarily tied to the SEC.
How did they come about?
We can talk about that offline. It's very convoluted, but they did come about after I want to say it was the .com crash.
Let me rephrase the question then.
Mm-hmm.
Did they come about via a government edict?
I'd have to look into that. I don't know if it was the threat of government control that made them all come together, or if it was an actual saying there needs to be some sort of industry regulatory body. I'll have to look at that.
For example, to give you an idea of an agency that is not technically a part of the government, but that was created by the government nonetheless, the Federal Reserve.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. That's fair.
So.
Yeah, and Megan brought up, she said that she was talking about how degrees don't carry as much weight as they used to because so many people have them. Yeah, that's just because there's just a huge surplus of educated people in the workplace, and degrees don't necessarily carry the same amount of weight, and you're actually seeing gaps in trade
Oh, yeah,
now.
and especially in our area, we are degree heavy. North Alabama is very degree heavy.
Yes.
We have one of the highest percentages of PhDs per capita in the nation.
Right.
So,
Per capita is the key word there. Yes, Huntsville, Alabama is not necessarily. You think of Alabama, you don't think of the most educated people in the world. But we're talking specifically the Huntsville area because of the amount of rocket scientists that we have. Literal rocket scientists. Like I know people who are just like, yeah, I'm a rocket scientist. Oh, well, okay, yeah. What's your degree in? Astrophysics. I have a master's in astrophysics.
yeah.
Oh, well, and quantum mechanics. I'm like, well. Kudos to you. 'Cause, yeah, by far. And you run into those, but if you start moving south, outside of the Huntsville area, you start seeing more of the traditional view of Alabama, which there's nothing really wrong with that, I guess, to an extent. It's God's country. It's Roy Moore country outside of that area.
We won't go into that.
But
further.
tying it back into, there's the oversights of industry is definitely one where the government kind of comes in under false pretenses and just makes it harder for everyone. I know that it was the Institute for Justice, which is a libertarian legal firm, took on Mississippi a few years back because they were requiring people who were just braiding hair to also have the same credentials as a cosmetologist. Well,
Yes.
I don't necessarily think that somebody who cuts hair for a living and dyes hair for a living needs to go through some sort of rigorous standards. And you mess up the hair whether you have the license or not. But in this situation, though, they were just braiding hair. They weren't doing any permanent modifications to it or even semi-permanent modifications. It's just a braid. And they were actually able to get that defeated in Mississippi. But that's just one small area where this undue burden is put on the people, and especially from a financial perspective, in order to pursue some level of commerce. And we're starting to see more and more in that as time goes on, where you have to have a business privilege license, like in the city of Huntsville, it's a privilege license. Last time I checked, commerce, commerce between peoples is a right, not a privilege. We can argue that all day long. But that's another area too that you look at, is that cities, especially bigger cities, monitor and prevent people from being actively engaging in free trade commerce.
Mhm.
Just as another example.
Well, it goes back to the entire thing, If somebody says, well, we're a free country, no, we're not.
Right.
We have not been a free country since day one.
We're not even in the top 10.
Nope.
Freest countries.
That's
Well, there is no such thing as a free country.
There's a freer country.
Yeah,
Freer.
Yeah, being
But,
a country in and of itself means you're not free, pretty much.
pretty much, yes.
Antarctica's pretty wide open.
There's
Yes.
actually unclaimed land in Antarctica that is sovereign land that can be yours if you just go stake a claim to it.
Is that it? Well,
That's
fuck,
it.
let's go.
There is no way to get, but I've looked into this. There's no way to get resources to it. I mean, unless you're selling snow, ain't no way you're going to be able to have any type of national industry or be able to build an infrastructure, because
Not
Doesn't
to,
fucking matter.
not
I
to
mean,
mention the fact
I just go to
that
war. Take it.
there are
there's oil there.
There are treaties in place that prevent anyone from harvesting many of the national resources that are down there.
Right. Yeah.
So it's there, but other than scientific purposes, you really can't use it for anything.
Watch me.
Lane's in the building. She said hi,
she
folks.
is.
Yeah.
She says
She missed the gun show earlier.
She did. Give it to her again.
Yeah,
Give it to her again.
It was if you rewind.
Oh,
it
look
a
at
little
that.
bit,
Oh, look at that. Lordy, lordy, lordy. Lordy. I know what I'm doing.
Oh man, the stuff that she tags me in is just amazing. I knew every time she tags me in something like that, it's amazing.
That was funny as hell.
Yeah, that was good.
So
What other examples can we provide these fine folks who are watching us live right now? for people that are watching us live.
Well, how
right
about
now.
everything you do? I mean,
Yeah,
literally every time you give someone $1, the government's involved.
that's true.
Well,
I mean, we're giving them a note that that doesn't even really belong to you. I mean, the government can take it whenever they want. That's their dollar. They can change the price of it. They can go up, can go down. They can tell you how much you're allowed to charge interest,
and technically, it's not even the government's dollar.
Right, yeah.
It's the Federal Reserve's.
It's FINRA's.
It's FINRA. It's not FINRA. It's not FINRA. I assure you, it's not how any of this works.
It is the Federal Reserve, which is why, let's see. What does it say on here?
Federal Reserve note.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's
I guess that is more if we're boiling it down, it really is. The government doesn't get to say much about it. They get to say how much of that you're allowed to have.
Yeah, it's
or
printed
how much more of another one you have to pay when you buy something for $1.
Yep.
Right.
It is printed by the Federal Reserve for the U.S. Treasury. But, then the U.S. Treasury basically has to buy them from the Federal Reserve at a premium. So, I mean, from the get-go, it's not even worth what it says on face value.
Yeah, we outsource our currency to other people. Let that sink in for a second. We outsource the currency to other organizations to manage for us.
That is nuts.
Yeah.
And the government has absolutely zero control over the process.
Yeah.
Yep.
Theoretically. I know that Halson, you'd brought up earlier in our amazing conversation off to the side, you were talking about even the way that some healthcare providers are treated differently.
Yeah,
from state to state.
We're actually working on something that is that will hopefully change that here in Alabama. But when you talk about nurse practitioners and physician's assistants, who depending on where you've lived and where you've grown up and where you've been to the doctor, you would call them doctor, right? I'm going to the doctor. You don't say I'm going to the nurse practitioner. I'm not going to the physician's assistant, because a lot of places out west, the Pacific Northwest, the Midwest, they are providers. It's period. You go to see your primary care physician or whatever. It just happens to be a nurse practitioner. You go in, they give you whatever the once over, and they write you prescriptions, and you go on. That's not the way it works in the South or in the Northeast for the most part. New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine are completely different, but the whole entire Rust Belt, whatever you would call it, New England, I guess, with the exception of New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine, and then all of the South. They're treated as second-class practitioners, basically. And what you have is the physicians who go to school for 8 years, which is, I mean, that's no small feat for what they do. I'm not trying to discount that at all. One great analogy I heard read today about this is like a physician. On this side, you have a first lieutenant or a second lieutenant in the Army, and on this side, you have an E6. Right? This guy knows a lot about military strategy because he just came out of officer selection school or officer candidate school or ROTC or whatever, and or West Point, right? And he's been engulfed in military strategy for 4 years. This guy's had his nose in the shit getting shot at and blown up for 4 years. Who knows more about medicine? Well, it's not comparing apples to apples, but how can you say that this guy's in charge of this guy or this guy knows more than this guy? So it's really it's a weird dynamic where I would certainly, for the muck of things, I would trust a nurse practitioner just as much as I would any physician. But for whatever reason, the government doesn't. The government says, yeah, Mr. Nurse Practitioner, I know that you've been to school for 6 years, and I know that you have been working as a nurse for 5 years. I know that you've been in the medical field. I know you've seen all kinds of things. But we're going to let you open your shop, but you have to have a physician to write prescription under. Mm-hmm. And if that physician is your employee, that physician can shut down your entire business basically willy-nilly. If you fire them, you can't fire them because you can't operate without them. So you'd have to hire another physician, incur whatever penalties or whatever. It's just kind of it's a weird dynamic because almost every more liberty-minded state in the nation treats them as equals, right? Virtually equals. They're not going to be doing surgery or whatever, but
I wouldn't go crazy as far as like liberty-minded states because, like the out west, northwest, they're not overly liberty minded. Just in this situation, they seem to have a little more flexibility.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, when I say liberty minded, I mean places where you're going to find 80-mile-an-hour speed limits, places where you're going to not have to have a license to open a pawn shop, places like Arizona and New Mexico, where everything's a little more wide open. There's not so much control of the entire government always breathing down your back. So liberty minded may not be the right thing, but libertier.
Libertier, a little bit libertier-esque.
And it's really weird because we're talking about all the Republican states, and these Republicans are always less government. Well, bullshit.
Oh, but
Right.
I started to say that. That's fucking bullshit. That's not just bullshit. That's fucking bullshit.
That's fucking bullshit. Yeah. So it's a really weird situation because you're basically saying that someone who is a medical technician, for lack of a better word, for someone who is literally in there helping people not die every day, is their opinion is worthless on what type of medicine they can prescribe to you, without someone that just graduated from college saying, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea." It's just it blows my mind, and I had no idea about it until Aaron brought that up.
Yeah, and as far as like the whole healthcare aspect of it, from a liberty perspective, is it doesn't matter what that person's credentials are, you have the right to decide who is going to be treating you from a medical perspective. If you want to be treated by a naturopath and just do naturopathic and homeopathic remedies, that's your right as a person. It's your body. Will it be as effective as an allopath? Probably not, but it might be from a long-term perspective, but that's your choice to make, and as long as people aren't being defrauded, there's no need for any type of intervention in that process.
No.
If honestly, like I like seeing PAs. I think I have a lot more respect for PAs than I do for a lot of medical professionals, because they are kind of that purgatory between scut nurse at a doctor's office, and then again, not trying to be demeaning about that whatsoever, but the one who handles all the BS that the doctor doesn't want to do versus the doctor. The PA is kind of that middle person who understands both sides of the coin very, very well, and is usually pretty effective with it. And,
I mean,
Sure,
I know. Go ahead.
Well, even in a lot of states, the delineation between a PA and a nurse practitioner are just ridiculously far apart, and it's virtually the same thing. I mean,
right.
You're not a physician, but you know enough about medicine for someone to say, yeah, you can practice.
It's like
But not in
like
Alabama.
like a PA is like a diet doctor, whereas a nurse practitioner is like a nurse on steroids, kind of. But they function almost parallel to each other.
Yep.
And in a lot of cases, you don't see that difference between the two. They're just kind of one has a PA, one has an NP. It is what it is.
Yep.
Well,
What
I
else you
know.
say?
I know. For example, with me and Katie, when we go in and we go to see our actual doctor, I mean, there's really not much difference between seeing him and the I think it's the nurse practitioner. We say, if we're not seeing him, Katie said yes. The only real difference we see is because we are on a high deductible insurance plan, so everything's out of pocket for us. We see a much lower rate.
Yeah. PAs charge and get billed at a different rate than a doctor does. So and I know we've talked about doing an insurance show. I could talk all day about insurance. I love the field. I don't know why, but that's one of the things too, is that if you have like that high deductible plan like you were talking about, where you have more out of pocket but you're still paying a ton of money in premiums, you're going to want to be more cost conscious, and that's why you're seeing more and more people switching to a PA or an NP as a primary, and then just relying on the MD or the DO as for the specialty aspect of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
As needed.
Yeah, and you're also talking about people who would relish the fact that they're making a $120,000 a year paycheck rather than someone who's going to turn their nose up at $120,000. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, not all doctors are pretentious pricks. I understand that. I know several doctors who are fantastic and who would give away their services for free if they could find a way to pay their bills.
Yeah.
But there are definitely those who have this delusions of grandeur, or whatever you want to call it, that they wanted to be $300,000 a year plastic surgeons, but it turns out they're just not. you know.
Yeah.
They're pediatricians, making like 140 a year. Going, where'd my life go wrong?
Right, yeah.
Actually, I worked for a pediatrician who was just like that. He constantly complained about how much money he made, or how much money he didn't make. And here I am, I'm busting it at like $9 an hour. And I'm like, I have no room for sympathy for you at this juncture, sir.
Yeah, no
None
shit.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Oh God, I've only got $140,000 years, and I'm.
But you know what? Those delusions came about probably because the government started requiring them to go to college for $500,000 worth of college. You know
Well,
what I mean?
that
Like,
especially now, given how much the cost of college has went up.
Right.
I was talking to somebody the other day about it and commented that because the last time I heard anything about it, it's like by the time you get out of med school and everything, you're looking at like $250,000 that you're going to owe, and somebody says no, it's more like $1 million now.
Yeah.
And it's just like, good God.
Well, that was the thing with me, is that I was pre-med in college. I came out of the military as a medic. I'm like, I'm gonna make medicine my career. When I sat down and did the math, being as old as I was, because I was already like 25, 26 when I started getting into the college game. I'm looking to be in my 40s before I can actually get into practice, do what I want to do. I was looking at pediatric oncology, so that's like 12 years of school and clinicals to get to where I wanted to go. And I'm like, and I started looking at the prices for it. I'm like, there's no way. I walk out in my 40s to start my career, for one, and then for two, I'm sitting there with anywhere from $500,000 to $750,000 in debt if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
And that ties also into why you get such you get lower quality service a lot of times, especially at doctors' offices, where they're there for 3 minutes, they barely look at you in the eye, and they're gone, and you got a $300 bill.
Yeah.
And Megan
that
popped
just
up and
happened to
said,
be. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, Megan popped up and said they go down to UAB and they utilize medical students, and medical students are they look at all the symptoms more closely and don't dismiss.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, because they're definitely under a lot more scrutiny.
Oh yeah.
And
I know in our case, our doctor, we lucked out. We found a really good doctor. He listens. As unlike so many doctors, his first answer isn't, "Well, let's see what drugs we can give you."
Right.
That's his last resort.
Yeah. And we have a doctor who kind of runs in some of the same circles, who also kind of keeps the same mentality, where his first response is not to pull out the prescription pad. It is definitely more of a holistic type, not so much like homeopathic holistic, but more of a holistic approach to, here's what's going on, here's ways to treat it before we give you a whole bunch of narcotics and send you home.
Holistic
Opposite of that to the VA.
Yeah. Holistic in the proper use of the term.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, my doc at the VA prescribed me fucking glucosamine, chondroitin, and fish oil for my joints, like instead of Flexeril or whatever. I mean, he also prescribed me that too, but that was for back spasms or whatever.
Yeah.
So it all depends, and if you luck out, I mean, this is the best care from one specific doctor I've had at the VA ever, pretty much. He's just a good dude. But in the same light, like this, I busted my knee up Friday, right? And I went to the emergency room on Sunday or Saturday, whenever it was. It doesn't really matter. Probably Saturday, since I had a knee brace on Sunday, right?
Yes.
Throw me a ball here. All right.
Yes, it was Sunday band practice. Yes.
Feed me, Mama Bird. All right. So I went. We get there, and like, I'm talking about my leg as if I have a torn ligament, right? And my wife, who is a nurse, is beside me, and she agrees with me. And I'm not a doctor, but I do play one on TV. I know that my fucking leg is not broken, right? I know that my knee is intact because I've been walking around on it.
Yeah.
I know that it's not going to fall apart right now. I know that there's no cracks in it, so it has to be some sort of soft tissue. So what do? Give me a fucking x-ray. Like, for real? I know that I don't need a fucking x-ray, but we were like, okay, well, I'm going to get an x-ray, and then they're not going to see anything, so they're going to give me an MRI. I walk past the MRI machine to get to the x-ray machine. They don't do X-rays on the weekends or in the emergency room or whatever. So I basically paid $700 to go have someone say, "Yep, well, your knee hurts." Oh,
Yep.
well, thank you so much. Wonder how much you made for that. So it's going to cost me $750 or whatever, and a lot of that goes back to government regulations for little small things here and there. Like, here's some little bullshit that we're going to make the insurance company do this. We're going to make sure the hospital has to do this thing for the insurance company. We're going to make sure that this person has to do something for this person. You have to see this and you have to see that. And that's not something that you typically think of. Like when I thought about this topic, that's not something that you typically think of that the government's involved in. But there's little charges here and there. Maybe not the whole $700, maybe not even half of it or a quarter of it. But there are little things here and there that have cost me more money because the government said so, for no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Laura Lane popped up and she said that she was misdiagnosed for many years. It's the quote unquote so-called specialist. Again, that's a prime example of how government is not really protecting the consumer base. It's just it's arbitrary regulation to prevent entry into the labor market. That's when you look at these professional licenses, I guess the emotion behind it is that the state's looking out for my best interest. That's not the case. It's just not seen. And of course, hey, we got Josh Smith watching. Josh Smith, in case you guys don't know, he's running for Libertarian National Committee chair. We've been in talks a lot over the past probably over the past week. We've been talking a lot, so it's good to see him actually popping up and saying hi, saying that he got hit with a $550 fine for not having health care insurance.
Why don't I see that? I think you're lying. I don't see his comment.
Yep, I am lying, straight up lying. I fabricated.
That's a very weird lie.
I fabricated.
I would shoot for like Elvis or Roy Orbison or something.
I wanted Roy Moore. Did you say Roy Moore?
Roy Orbison.
No. Orbison. My bad.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Wouldn't that be some shit though if Roy Moore was actually in here? Yeah.
It would be some shit. Yeah. Brandon Lane's in here, much better than Roy Moore.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Brandon Lane's in it. Hey, Brandon's not saying anything, or unless I'm not seeing the comments on my end.
He's not saying anything, but on my end it says Brandon Lane join.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what I'm talking about. Little bitty government things are ruining us, right? I don't see no Josh Smith in here. That's the government.
Well,
That's the government, folks. That's the government.
Maybe he's watching on my feed. Oh, here we go. The Brandon Lane just popped in. There you go. Wily Bastards. And Joshua Smith is a real person. I actually have talked to him on the phone.
He is a real person. That's
he's
very strange.
a real live boy.
And he hates war. That's
yes.
We probably should have talked about that. Old fucking dick fingers trying to pick a fight with the whole goddamn world.
Yeah.
Mr. Dick
I mean,
Arms.
I'm not gonna lie. I do want to go fight some Russians. But me personally, I want to go fight some Russians because I feel like they're pretty good fighters, and I think I got a chance.
Ugh.
Like, I want to go box them, just like go box 4 or 5.
Oh, go box them. I thought you want to take on the entire Russian army, and then I was like,
I'll go box the whole fucking army. I don't care.
I got a 380. I got a 380 you could take over to your fight against the Russians.
That's not the same.
Pew pew pew.
Probably wouldn't even hurt 'em. They got big old huge heads, man. I just feel like I could hit one. I just want to see how I do against 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah, I think it would depend on what level they are.
So let's go back to your dreams of UFC fighting a Russian, and let's talk about your knee right now.
So my knee's a little jacked up. Yeah, and that was against some dude who had never done jiu-jitsu before in his entire life.
Yes. It sucks. It sucks. It sucks getting old. Let me tell you, it's not a joy.
Now, was this regular jiu-jitsu or BJJ?
BJJ.
Okay.
Joshua Smith just popped in, so he had a Russian girlfriend for 3 years. They don't fight them. They don't fight fair. That was my experience in Korea. For those of you who know me, I was in the military. I stationed in Korea. Hung around with a lot of the Russian girls that worked the bars. Wouldn't mess with them. Would not cross them to save my life. They will fuck you up. No doubt about it. All right, so let's we've had this conversation about just little bits of government, or just kind of the ways government kind of gets in the door. Let's break this down to more of a local level.
Let's do it.
We were kind of talking about before the show something that kind of popped up. Horace's lovely wife Katie kind of threw it at us. We kind of reviewed it. It's a GoFundMe. I'm gonna put the GoFundMe link in the chat box if you are listening or at home on our podcast weeks after the show aired. You can go to our page, and we'll probably post it on our page too. But it's the GoFundMe for Free Hearts Farm.
Yeah.
Just put in the comments so those of you who are playing the home game can click on that and take a look at it. This is a good example. In all fairness, Horace wanted to put this out there. Horace, go ahead and give the disclaimer.
Yes, this just popped up tonight. We have had zero chance to do any due diligence or fact finding. Everything that we have is based on this one post. So,
All right. That's our disclaimer. We're not getting on our soapbox just yet and setting dumpster fires anywhere in regards to this at this moment. But the long of the short is more or less it looks like an HOA is claiming eminent domain against this lady for having.
It's not
livestock.
even an HOA.
Apparently they're claiming they're an HOA and the courts are agreeing with them. And so it's a very convoluted story. I'm actually in the process of trying to dig up the actual legal documents regarding this case if I can get my hands on them. But apparently,
the court is treating them as an HOA, but they have not set themselves up as an actual HOA. They are a trust set up by a court.
Horace, your beard's legendary, according to Brandon.
I get a lot of compliments on it, actually.
Yeah,
so,
the way you stroke it right now, it's amazing.
Yeah, I keep trying to pull mine out to see if it's just fucking one day it's just going to all come out and it's all going to be glorious. But it just doesn't happen. It just stays
You
closed.
just have to let it grow.
Yeah, mine doesn't do that.
Close.
Mine comes off my chin, and even if I put some shit in it, it still like ducks under my chin and then curls out and then starts like, and I can't do it.
Mine gets poofy. It's like I'm wearing chinchillas on my face.
Like
and I can't do
Well,
it.
have you noticed how mine goes
Jews
everywhere?
with their curls, the Hasidic Jews, is that what they're called?
Yes.
Yeah,
They're
they're like
curls.
that except my beard.
Yes.
Like
I was in my 30s before mine really started growing right.
All right.
So.
Let's steer this back. I'm trying. Yeah, the most awkward boner of all time. I totally get that. We're going to steer this back because Luke is working on control of train that gets derailed. But click that link and take a look at it. Read what she's saying. We're gonna, of course, we're gonna try to fact check the validity of these claims, but it's kind of a big deal. I mean, if what she's saying is anything like, I'm sorry, Megan, your beard hasn't come yet. Give it due time. I think menopause might be able to kind of get that for you. I don't know. But it's even if it's 50% true, there's some serious concerns from a local level. By local, I mean like Madison County, Huntsville area local when it comes to the way the judge was handling the case. For one, the claims that they're making against her property, the fact that she's got liens against her property against a quote-unquote HOA that she never agreed to be a part of. They just kind of came in and said, hey, we're an HOA. Invasions of privacy from members of the HOA to use in court, taking pictures through her bedroom window. I mean, this is some
I was about to say, doesn't Alabama have peeping Tom law?
Apparently the courts don't give a shit. And
what I'm saying though is, in theory, given that there's an admission in court under oath,
in theory,
in theory, all this is in theory.
Theory.
So, but rather than having to repeat saying in theory, it's all in theory. We have somebody who has admitted in court that they did this, which opens up a criminal complaint against them.
Nope. In theory.
Violations of judicial ethics, with the judge telling the trust, if there's anything I can do to help y'all, just let me know.
And so, I do want to kind of point out, and this is a matter of, I guess, would be public record. We'll go back in and fact.
I'm looking at it right now.
Go ahead.
There's already case law presented. Well, actually, in FindLaw.com, there's case law for the Hun S2 Malad.
Yeah, that was an issue with the CVS pharmacy case.
Right.
It was a conveyance issue. The original deed was conveyed back in like the 50s or 60s. That it can only be used for residential structures. That's basic textbook real estate law, right?
But it's not. That's what. It's not. They went back, and it's basically retrofitted this deed to say that no, I'm sorry that you can't build that here.
Yeah.
Because the original guy never actually said that it's just for residential property. and he subdivided these parcels. They're just
Yeah.
but they won. It doesn't really
Yes,
matter.
yeah,
But
because
it looks
the-
like
the
this is bullshit.
The trust
me.
went back and had this guy's property added to the original CVS case that was decided in 2008
Right. Yeah, but it looked
and added to a prior decision.
right. But what I'm just saying about the original case in 2008, well, which was actually decided in 2006. They retroactively put this information in the deed.
Yeah.
The deed never once said that it couldn't be commercial property, but now for whatever reason, they got to go back and put it in, and then made it part of a conveyance. So I don't know, man. It
So,
seems
yeah.
like this dude's or woman, whatever.
Yeah,
is,
this lady just had, she bought a couple acres. It's meets and bounds. We're not talking about a subdivision here. We're talking about
Right.
just property, county property. She started a hobby farm. She picked up a couple of small horses and this, that, and the other. It's as far as the state is concerned, the county is concerned, it's perfectly fine for agricultural use. Zoning laws, that's another way the government kind of gets in the door and really fucks you. So and it's not a commercial venture. It's just something that she does. Like people who know me know that we started raising goats. It's like we're not doing it for profit at this point. It's just a hobby. But anyways, the trust itself, that's overseeing money they got from the CVS debacle. They got like $1 million, so they're overseeing this trust. The director of the trust is the head of the trust is actually the director of the Huntsville International Airport. So here's a great example, a perfectly great example of crony capitalism. This is when you have somebody who has deep ties to local government leaning on and relying on what's supposed to be a blind and impartial legal system to keep things fair. No, they're not doing that. In this situation, what's happening is that the buddy-buddy system is coming into play, and the judge is working as their advocate, which is kind of outside his scope of practice.
Well, again, that goes back to the entire thing I was saying. This is a violation of judicial ethics.
Right.
I mean, Roy Moore could not do anything any worse than this.
Well,
I mean, he could fuck a kid. That's pretty bad.
As far as judicial ethics,
I mean, like Arvin and Roy Moore see eye to eye on a lot of things, especially when it comes to 14-year-old girls.
that has nothing to do with judicial ethics, though.
I know. I just like throwing that out there because it's fun to say.
Yeah.
Right, it is fun to say.
I'm trying to keep it on the level of judicial ethics.
Okay.
And I mean,
You found
this is right up there in Roy Moore country.
Yeah.
So
This
you know.
is shady practices.
And to make it even worse, the way the trust was set up, and this was, as I understand it, this was set up by the the Alabama Supreme Court.
Mm.
There is only one judge, period, that can oversee or hear any cases related to it.
Yeah, that
You
makes
cannot
absolutely
take-
no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see how that shit sticks to the wall. You know what I mean? That sounds ridiculous.
And if
That's
you
kinda
want, if you want to appeal, your only option to appeal is arbitration.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely fucked from the get-go. Arbitration favors the big guy. In this case, it's going to favor the trust. No
Right.
Oh, yeah.
questions asked.
At all, anytime there's any situation where the little guy can be bled out, it's just the way whether you're talking about war against a country that can't afford it,
Yeah.
or some invasion or whatever. It's always the big guy will always win out when it comes to some sort of half-assed arbitration, whether or conflict, I should say.
Or even in litigation, you if you follow some of the cases where Monsanto was going after these small-time farmers for intellectual property violation because just so happened their crops, Monsanto
Cross-pollinated.
cross-pollinated, so therefore it's a patent infringement, and the courts were like, hey, yeah, this is cool. These are the problems that people refuse to see,
Yep.
and the fact that the way the structure is set up now, these actions are not in the best interest of the people in general.
again, the government's not here to protect the people. The
Right.
government's here to protect itself.
So, in conversations with other people who are saying we need the court systems to do this, we need law enforcement for this, that, and the other, you have no choice but to remind them, and you can use some of these examples saying they don't do that. In theory, going back to that, they're supposed to, but as it stands right now, that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a court system that is fair and impartial, you will have to find a way to form a third party system that's not attached to the government at all, who can demonstrate from the get-go that they are fair and impartial, and that people go to them because they know they will be fair and impartial.
I just say take it to Tinder. I mean, that's pretty much my solution for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But okay, so that's another great example, and that's something that we're going to kind of do some reading on. Laura Lane popped up. She just said that you think the LP or LPA would have some lawyers that would take this case on pro bono. That's that may not be a bad thing to pursue.
As long as they went to an APA accredited school.
Yeah.
Or ABA.
But that's another thing too, that maybe like firms like Institute for Justice, could potentially take up as well. Possible. Even though I don't know how much more room she has as far as arguing her case.
Yeah.
But another thing that kind of popped up this week, we'll kind of start winding it down, trying to keep it to the hour. The whole Backpage thing. The Backpage is another great example of small amounts of government coming in and then coming in full force and kind of just taking over.
This wasn't a small amount of government. This is a huge, huge overreach of government.
Okay.
They seized it, right?
They straight up seized it. What I'm talking about, though, is the way the government has been acting over the course of a period of time when dealing with these marketplaces like Craigslist and Backpage, and kind of butting their nose in where they have no business belonging. In all honesty,
this goes back to something I mentioned a couple of episodes ago. I think it was Faustus or Sostus, depending on who you're talking to. Basically, free the states to go after sex trafficking.
Yeah.
And it passed Congress. It was signed into law and everything. And that is the bill under which they're doing all this.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning earlier in the episode, earlier in the show, when I was like, some politician, it's just because he doesn't have his head pulled out of his ass far enough, is like, you know what? Yeah, we should stop sex trafficking. Oh, that's a great idea. Let me autograph this. But what they don't know is they're just fucking up a whole bunch of other shit.
Well, they're not. What they're doing is making it harder to, because this bill completely changed all the Section 230 language relating to websites.
Yeah.
To where websites, as long as they monitored and everything, were not held liable.
Yeah.
Well, under this new rule, they are now held liable, which is, for example, why Craigslist closed their personal section.
Close their personals down. Yep.
That was the fucking worst, man. I don't know what to do when I'm taking a shit.
Yeah, I know. I feel that. Yeah, and Brandon Lane popped up saying that's the government shoving down some moral superiority. That's true. You don't. I mean, and I've actually seen people who are quote unquote libertarians loving this, thinking this is the greatest thing because it's stopping like child sex trafficking and this, that, and the other, and it might be, yeah.
Okay.
But bottom line is that these are the services that people who are in the sex trade utilize to be able to make a living, whether you agree with it or not. I mean, am I a fan of prostitutes? I'm kind of cheap. No, I'm not. I'm sorry. $350 for what? Really? Because I can go take care of myself in the bathroom in like 3 minutes and save myself a ton of money. Yeah, that's just my mentality.
Can you lick your own asshole, Luke? No, you can't.
What I do behind closed doors, sir, none of your concern. Maybe I can. I've never tried.
Yeah, no, you know what? That's me being. I'm assuming your abilities. That's
you are.
Nice.
Yeah. Don't assume my gender, sir.
Well, go ahead, Horace.
The problem though is by getting rid of all these places who were actually monitoring, who were reporting to the police and everything when they found stuff. They're all gone now. So it's
Mhm.
having to go deeper underground where it's not monitored.
Yeah,
So
you're
it's
not.
it's
You're,
actually making it harder to do this now.
and the thing is that if your goal was to end this horrible atrocity, all you're doing is pushing it deeper to where it's going to be even harder to find.
Yeah. And
If you really want to stop the whole child sex trafficking, you probably want to
Stop
like
having
maybe.
kids.
Well, there's that. That's usually that's a good one. That's a good one to go with.
Legalize abortion.
But
would y'all
what?
would y'all like to make this a topic one night?
What, child sex trafficking? I don't
No,
know if we're gonna get a lot of viewers on
the
that. That's.
the entire sex work thing.
I think so. Yeah.
If so, I will see what I can do. There's somebody on my friends list who is very active in that area. I don't know that she's a sex worker herself, but she's very active in that community
Okay.
and everything. And she's
Initials.
actually, oh God,
Because
Phone number.
SD.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. Her and yep, I know exactly.
Phone
Yeah,
number.
Gorgeous redhead.
she's a huge advocate. A
Yes.
huge advocate.
I can try to get her and see
Yeah.
if she wants to come on.
Megan says making something illegal doesn't stop it from happening. Oh my God, yes. Now if you could go and preach that to 10 people and get them to agree with the same thing and have them do for 10 people, we would actually see some serious change in our lifetime. And
Well-
Brandon Lane called her out. Thank you, Brandon Lane. But yeah, Brandon Lane also hits brought up a great point too. Decriminalize. If you want to stop the
Yeah.
sex trafficking, decriminalize it. Same thing with drugs. You want to get rid of drug dealers, decriminalize it. Make it to where there's no profit in it for them, as a whole,
Yeah,
And-
I don't buy that 100%. I don't think that it would stop it by decriminalizing it. I like or anything else for that matter. I just think I just think it reduces it. Like cigarettes aren't criminalized, but they still fucking traffic them across state lines to sell them.
yeah,
on
but
the
you're
shelf.
Well,
you're not looking at the
You're
severity.
trying to avoid taxes, though.
Yeah.
Right. I understand that. And you would
So-
also do the same thing if you decriminalized it and all of a sudden prostitution is legal across the United States. You would be trying to do stuff under the table so that you wouldn't be taxed for it. I mean, I'm not arguing the whole point. I'm just saying that it's not going to get rid of anything. You're not going to get rid of people trying to kidnap kids to sell them into sex rings.
No.
Because
No.
no matter what happens with legalization of prostitution, it's never going to be okay to fuck a 9-year-old.
No.
That's true. That's a very blunt way to put it, and I'm glad you threw that out there.
Yeah.
But
But on the flip side,
Go ahead.
unlike drugs, for instance, let's look at what Portugal did and the effects it had.
Right.
Seceded from
It's-
Spain.
Well, no, they were never a part of Spain, so
Sure they were.
They
The
seceded from
ninth
Brazil.
century. They seceded from Brazil.
No, they decriminalized. They decriminalized all drugs. They've seen addiction rates drop. They've seen crime related to it drop. It's been a blessing for them.
Mhm.
They treat it as a health issue rather than a criminal issue.
Right.
You know.
And the same type of approach can be said here. Are you going to remedy? Yeah, it's not going to be 100% gone, no doubt about it. But you're not going to see as many black markets pop up.
No.
By allowing, I hate to say this, allowing sex work to actually take place.
Well, it's also really, coming from someone who has actually perused every single nook and cranny of Craigslist and Backpage, there's not a whole lot of child sex trafficking going on there.
Yeah.
No. If
It's-
they catch it, it's reported and taken down instantly.
Yeah, and you can see the ones that are like actually sex workers. It's like, oh, I need 120 roses and 30 kisses for a blowjob in a car, or whatever. Like, you're not talking about
Blowjob
dollars.
in a car? Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. That's a
Is the 130 for the blowjob or for the car? Because
Yes.
I'm concerned either way on this
You
one.
get both. Buy one get one
You
free.
get both?
Yeah, it's not a bad deal.
Yeah.
Probably a fucking Kia.
But that's what I'm saying. Like you can look through all those sites and they're so easy and they're all indexed. You just look through them and you're not going to see anything that's that bad. So you're not
No.
stopping shit by doing that.
No.
It's just the whole flexing of the morality coming
The
coming
fucking
from largely
thought
from the
police.
GOP on this one.
Yeah.
The
Freedom
last
Party.
yeah, the last party had to take any type of moral stance on anything. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
So I guess in summation, you'll hear your friends, you'll hear coworkers, you'll hear people saying that the government just needs to regulate this. The government just needs to kind of step in and say, hey, we're going to oversee this, or have some sort of say in what transpires, which is the worst because they don't just do it a little bit; they do it a lot of it.
Yeah.
And ironically, the best watchdogs to stop sex traffickers are the sex workers.
Oh, absolutely.
I have seen that. I've read some studies on that. That is very true. Very, very true.
I haven't read any studies on that.
I haven't either, but
You should.
I've known
Just
enough
throwing that out there.
that they don't want the illegal shit going on like
No,
that
no, they
because
don't.
it makes it harder on them
Mhm.
because it leads to legislation exactly like we have now.
Right.
So it's in their best interest to put a stop to it as soon as they find out.
They should unionize.
I don't know
There
that
you
I'd go that far, but
You see a bunch of prostitutes picketing.
Yeah.
actually they
till we get
were
a
not
fair
long
wage.
ago in
In New Orleans, I believe.
well, that was not. I don't know that was necessarily prostitutes. That was most exotic dancers. Was New Orleans.
I didn't realize that they had dancing license here until a couple months ago.
They have a dancing license,
Yeah, you gotta have a license to be a stripper in Alabama.
and you don't even take off all your clothes. That is just
Right.
absurd.
That is absurd.
Absurd. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And you
take
can't
off-
serve.
Are
you
pasties
can't
still
serve liquor?
required?
That's
No.
from what I understand. No.
No. Okay.
No, I just can't remember if I've ever been in a strip club here that served liquor. I know they serve
No.
beer because I mean,
No.
the
Beer
one
and
we
wine
always
only.
go to is beer and wine. Yeah,
Beer and
That's all
wine.
any of them can do.
but there's no pasties.
Um,
Yeah, no pasties.
Well, that's
eh.
all right.
That used to be required. So
Yeah.
Not no more.
Well,
Yeah.
I was doing research on that industry, and I
Yeah,
did
me
see
too.
the pasties because it's
Me too.
money hand over fist, and it's one of those things where it's kind of like, well, it's kind of skeezy, but
I wish I could do it, man. I wish I could do it.
what strip?
Yep.
Just fake bushes. Wow. Those are called merkins, I believe.
Yeah.
Merkins.
And why in hell anybody would want to, I do not know.
I don't know.
Want to what?
Have a fake bush.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah, Megan, you're not missing much. You're really you want to go to the strip club?
We'll go. I'll take you for your birthday.
They'll take you.
You cannot because we are having a joint birthday party. Megan is my birthday twin.
Well, you know where that birthday party could be?
Oh my god.
Well, in that case, I will not be there. I do not do strip clubs. Period.
Oh, why not?
I see no reason to tease myself with something that's as far as it's going to go.
Yeah. Well, I like
hate
looking
to-
at
I hate to
Ferraris
pay-
too.
I hate to piss away money on $7 bills and $7 beers and $10
They got-
covers.
the cherry has natty lights for $3, so it's good enough for me.
Horse piss, in other
Is
words.
that
It's all
for
horse
is that for a
Actually,
keg?
they have a really good they have a really good craft beer selection now at the.
Well,
So
I'm glad
what
to
do they
see
have
it.
from straight to L?
I don't know.
All right.
I'm sorry, straight to L is my brewery, okay?
And the cherry is my strip club. So
Zombie stripper party.
sounds good. I'm telling you,
Alright.
man, I can make that happen.
So,
Maybe Megan. Maybe we can. We can make. I don't know. I've got my
Cubes in your
Borat.
beer? Oh no.
I can throw out a feeler or two.
Cubes in your beer. Whew.
That's
That's a
there's
that's a
nothing
rough
wrong
night
with
right
that
there.
either,
Let me tell you.
Laura. That
That brings-
sounds like a great time to me.
It brings back memories of the army.
Wouldn't be the first time I've been to a party with where a stripper came in.
With
Yeah.
pubes in your beer?
Wouldn't be
No.
the last time.
Oh,
No.
okay. All right.
Jesus.
So I think we've effectively killed this conversation.
Yeah, the government did that.
Nothing new there.
The government sending its space waves into our heads.
Yes. Something
Ah,
like that.
yes, the tinfoil hat community.
I hope
Mhm.
fucking Lord
Yes,
Commander
right.
Trump doesn't fucking get us into a war.
What just happened?
I don't know. Oh,
There's a
what
big-
happened
there's
over there?
A big giggle. Big giggle.
There was a big giggle.
I said something about tinfoil hat community, and Katie said what?
Yes, you rang.
Love talking conspiracy theories with her. Good times. Anyway, so closing this out with the final last words. Horace, go.
We'll go back to something from the beginning. As soon as we have information on time and date for the fundraiser shopping trip, we will post it to Facebook so that y'all know and y'all can be set up to be watching at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So
That is
we're all
correct.
looking forward to that.
That is
Will
correct.
you be recording it for posterity?
We'll be live
Absolutely.
streaming
We'll
it.
be live
But will
streaming
you
it.
have a
from
recording
every angle.
For those of us who might work and not be able to see it.
So,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We are.
well, it's going to be, since it's going to be live streamed for Facebook, we'll record it. We can probably do it through this, though, and record it that way
We can do anything we want to do.
and live
Maybe.
stream it through.
Maybe. I don't have. I
Oh,
don't have
tutus. God, if I don't wear a tutu, I'm gonna regret it for the rest of my life. So
Men in
we're gonna have to
tutus.
find me a tutu.
We'll
All right.
we'll see what we can do.
We'll figure that out. Worst case scenario, it gets recorded onto Facebook and stays there.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. Holliston, last words.
I don't really have anything good tonight.
Okay.
Fuck Roy Moore.
Okay. That's
always a good one.
That's always appropriate.
Yeah. Fuck Donald Trump, man. Fuck that
Donald
guy.
Trump. Fuck him too.
Fucking
Those-
dick.
the speaking of Donald Trump, the Jeff Sessions challenge still is
Oh my
not getting
God!
met yet.
Yes. You guys are
I
so
guess we're gonna have to take that down and put a new challenge out there. I guess our
Yes, please.
I guess our fans can't come up with some good nudie pics of Jeff Sessions, so we're gonna have to find maybe Janet Reno. I don't know.
Shit.
I'm just spitballing here. Yeah. Yeah. So that's.
Ooh, how about
Who?
Governor Ivy?
Ooh. Oh, that's some hot shit right there.
Telling you.
All right. I'll
I
see.
like a little older.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, you. That's right, Laura Lane. You. So, and also keep in mind, we're working really hard with Miss Laura Lane on getting some stuff set up for a possible visit from Larry Sharp and from Joshua Smith. Don't know if Josh is still watching. Hopefully he is. Trying to get some venues nailed down and whatnot. So, kind of stay tuned to the local libertarian circles, and we should be able to have the event nailed down here in the next week or so. But it'll be kind of cool to see that come together. Outside of that, I think we're pretty much done. Check out Twitter. Check out the
Twitter. Yeah.
Check out the podcasts.
We're about to be on MeWe too.
Yeah, and we're slowly migrating to MeWe.
Yeah.
I thought we were already on MeWe.
We are on MeWe, but it's just not meh. It's just more like a me.
If you're on MeWe, come find us. You'll find me with Luke Von Trapp. You have Rolling Thunder,
Rolling
Yeah.
Thunder, Uncivil
69.
Liberty.
Oh, okay. And,
Teddy Bear. Teddy
I'm
Bear
actually
Lover
under my
69.
name.
and then Horace. Yeah. So
And
go.
just when you're looking for Luke Von Trapp, you may have to catch him on Facebook or something and remind him to check it ever so often to approve things.
Yes, because I keep getting those emails. I keep getting those emails, and I'm like, I probably should go in there sometime and do
Oh.
something.
Because I don't think you've approved me yet.
Nope, I haven't. I haven't been in there since I set up my account. So go check it out.
I have very few friends, and one of them keeps sending me dick pics. So fucking,
I'm
I have to get rid of
I'm
him
so
too.
sorry.
As soon as I
didn't
figure
know
out
that
how
was-
to.
I didn't know that was your number. I apologize. It was cold. Please don't judge.
No, Judge.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this stuff up. You guys wasted another perfectly good hour and 11 minutes of your life with us. We greatly appreciate it. Like I said, check us out on Facebook and all the other outlets that we have. And until next week, talk to you guys later.
Good night, all.
Good night, everyone.